Yeah, go ahead and record.
Perfect.
Let's see. We won in 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
I
20,
think
22.
it's
That's Dabo's eighth
wait a minute.
ACC title.
Yeah, is it eight out of 9 years or something like that?
Yeah.
Hold on,
No, it would
it's
be
hold on, it's 11. Yeah, so yeah, 11. God dang it. We didn't win in 12,
what's up?
Florida State 13, Florida State 14, then 15,
Yeah.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. Yeah, eight. Eight and
Eighth.
7 and 8 years. Eight
Mhm.
total, 7 and 8 years. Yeah.
There was also a stat that I had a few stats I posted to our Twitter profile that I might like put in here just as like it's kind of fun. It's funky. Clemson has beaten an SEC team in every season they've played an SEC team going back to 2011. 2010, we lost at Auburn and versus South Carolina 29-7. That game was rough at home. So we get the chance to do that against Tennessee. I'll I'll hit that in the Orange Bowl section.
Orange
There
Bowl.
was another one. Yeah. So we play Tennessee. We get to extend this kind of big streak of 11 years of every season we've played an SEC. We didn't play an SEC team in 2020, so we
Yeah.
didn't have a chance to beat them. Um, you could say the streak was snapped then, but whatever. Um, sorry, I'm just going back. I forget what I had something in here about. Oh, it was like the Atlantic, the number of appearances or the number of Atlantic titles is like way higher than anybody else.
Hmm.
Like since we split out into divisions. I just think it's worth like the Atlantic no longer exists. Next year there's no more divisions.
Yeah, you would think Florida State would be up there, but I guess
I agree.
Boston College took a lot of those during the Matt
Right.
Ryan era,
That's exactly right. So
and they actually weren't that good for certain periods in the aughts.
Clemson had 9 Atlantic division titles. FSU had 5. BC had 2. Wake had 2. Nobody else had any.
Hmm.
Um, that's pretty big.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
suppose you do want to talk about transfer exodus or portal
Oh
exodus,
yeah.
transfer portal.
Yeah. Let's
Okay,
talk, let's hit at least the order in which we want to go through this shit.
sure,
So
sure, because
I
yeah,
say let's go like backward looking, immediately next looking, and then future state, which is transfer portal, which is like next season. So
sure.
um let's hit the thread and make Jarrett give us the ledger. Jarrett,
The ledger.
yeah, what's the running tally on transfers? So I've
Oh,
got this in like an email thing.
hold on,
Um,
I've got it's on TigerNet.
okay.
They actually do a pretty good job of keeping it
So
updated.
Sergio Allen, it was Dakari Collins, Kevin Swint, Levante Bentley. Do you want to just keep reading them as they were kind of being announced?
Yeah.
DJ is like one of the last ones we had go. Kobe Pace.
Oh, hold on, I got you. Yeah, EJ
Serg-
Williams. I
oh, EJ
think
Williams.
you said
Yep,
Swint. I don't have them in order, but I think they all more
that's
or less
fine.
came out the same. Swint,
Right.
Fred Davis, Levante, Bentley, obviously DJ, Billy Wiles, two quarterbacks.
That's right.
And then, so basically, we had two medical retirements and an early retirement
Oh yeah, who's the
from.
medicals?
So Hunter Rayburn and Landon Sanders. We had I guess three because it's just listed
Yeah,
injury retirement. Just
Mason Trotter.
Mason Trotter, so we can call that medical retirement, whatever. Dakari Collins and Sergio Allen in season. So three
Yep.
medical and the medical retirement started in the spring. So just thinking about it from like a roster management standpoint, those happen
After signing day.
after.
Yeah.
There you go. After
And
signing
after
day.
the portal closed. Actually, there was a date, Cody, where we weren't going to be able to take more portal takes. Um, it's like in early
Yeah.
May or something.
Oh, I didn't even
So
know that. But well,
yeah,
so well, the Hunter Rayburn was in February, but really the
yeah,
vast majority of them happened by the start of this, like right at the beginning of the season and beyond, in August and beyond.
right. Yeah, Xander's didn't even play a game. Trotter was like didn't practice in the fall camp. It was like
Yeah.
undisclosed, and then he turns out he has a back thing, right, or neck
Yeah.
or something.
So nine
Which like that
transfers
begs its
total.
own. Yeah, so nine, one, two, three,
Nine
four, five,
transfers, three medical
three medical.
retirements. Yeah.
So that's like 12 scholarships.
Yeah.
And that we're not, I don't think we should get into like who we think is going to go for the NFL or like early departure.
Yeah. I
I
wouldn't
mean,
even.
do you have the definite seniors with no more eligibility teed up,
I
or is
do.
that okay?
Um, well, actually, no, you can't. Like big, big asterisk there. All of them have a year eligibility, so almost all of
Yeah,
them
all of
can
them
come
could
back.
come back. Yeah,
And I
okay.
and I
Let's not.
wouldn't like Will Putnam. I think he'll probably come back, for example. But I
Mhm.
don't. Who knows? Jalen Phillips and Sheridan Jones, I think will come back, but who knows? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah, and then there's the big names. I mean, I don't know that I don't think you or I are interested in speculating. And
mm-mm.
like we can make a case to Murph, to Brzee, to XT that they can improve their draft stock by coming back and or like get a championship and or have another fun year at college. And maybe the money differential is not that big if NIL gets going for them, but um
So crazy.
it's not that interesting right
No,
now.
no, yeah. The
Like,
speculation piece is it's more about like,
well, it's
uh,
more, yeah, I think like what are they going to do with the roster management moving ahead and like the demand, like what size class would we have to sign in the next week to
right.
10 days right now to like account for 9 departures, three, like we could plan for those 3 medicals because we knew like they could have been offering guys all fall, but like these 9 transfers, I don't know how many we would have thought would go,
Right.
plus all the NFL guys who have yet to commit. So like we are not going to sign a large enough class so that it either means like carrying a
Right.
bunch of walk-ons or transfer portal.
Yeah. And there's a lag. Yeah. Anyhow, we could talk that. All right.
Yeah,
So we got some
I think
framing for.
just teeing that up and talking through it's cool and like remains to be seen. And I can ask you, Cody, do you think Dabo and fucking Danny Pearman are going to actually take a
Yeah.
non-graduate as a transfer?
Yeah.
Um,
And not only that, I don't know if you read any of Larry Williams' stuff this week.
Not really. No, I haven't.
I
Um,
I'm not like I don't read everything he writes anymore, but he had some good stuff on like issues with the portal. Like it anyhow, it's just I can weave that in.
yeah, I mean the hit rates for guys leaving and probably hit rates for guys you take probably are not great. Like for
Right.
every Jamison Williams that Alabama took from Ohio State, it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
But in my mind, Cody, that's just like the hit rate on high schoolers, where maybe it's a little less than that because these guys are like cast off their team for a reason, but
Yeah.
that's why you got to be just selective and develop them the right way and find the fit.
It's
I
true.
mean,
The hit rate on high schoolers being decent in their freshman year is like 3%, maybe 2%. It's super low.
yeah,
So anyhow,
totally.
let's fire it
Yeah.
up, man.
What's it? Yeah, let's fire it up. We're
But
good. I think
yeah, so transfer portal, but also if you, the only other thing is like what are the positions of need? I don't know if you want to go down because that could lead into like going, you know how my brain thinks. Well, then you got to, go in every position group. But
and
totally up
that
to you. I'll let you
I think
guide that.
positions in need high level we can hit on it.
Sure.
Like um, you know, depending a lot of that's caveated by let's say we've got like a decent amount of NFL departures from the defensive studs. Yeah, we've got an impressive recruiting class coming in, but like how many of those are going to be impact freshmen? Like I think defensive end, wide receiver, and O line depth are always going to, and cornerback are going to be like the positions
Yeah.
that we probably got to pad if Sheridan Jones doesn't come back. So let's like hit it high level and be like, we're going to be analyzing this shit for the next 6 months.
Yeah,
So
I guess the reason to not go too deep too is because when these seniors make their announcements and when
yeah,
extra people transfer, because I bet it's not quite over yet. Like we'll be working
yeah, yep, exactly.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is not like a final say on how this all goes down.
right.
So
Okay. So yeah,
cool.
transfer portal. I don't care how like deep you want to
Yeah,
go
let's
on. Like I don't want to, or I can talk about the game, but yeah, the game's all about Cade and
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I mean, what were your favorite plays?
yeah,
I don't know.
sure.
It's hard because I was like really hammered. Some I don't
I
know.
was
I just
too. I was too. That's
right.
why I
Like I
was talking so much
remember.
shit. I was liquor
Oh
drunk.
yeah. Oh yeah. Perfect. Like we were taking shots. I mean,
Yeah.
I just remember time after time being like, "Oh my god, coaches are so cocky right now," or like we're pulling these plays out of our ass. Like there was a lot of that. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Cole Turner deep ball is probably like everyone's favorite play. I mean, the pick six was awesome. I don't know, whatever. We can get into it.
Yeah.
This team, it was fun. I think that's the thesis.
Sure.
It's fun again. So, all right, cool. I will kick us off. Welcome back to the Clemson podcast. Drew Sweeney scored more points as a holder than Drake May did as a passer. Dabo's off Mac Brown's Christmas card list. Clemson is 11-2 and ACC champs, and life is good. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Nick, joined tonight by Cody. We are the Clemson podcast, and this is our 2022 ACC Championship game recap episode. We are recording this a little bit late in the week. It's Wednesday. Season's pretty much over. Bowl season's starting. We're taking it easy here, Cody. But great to get this win. Really fun game. I think the team needed that. I think the coaching staff needed that, but we as fans also needed a game like that. What are your initial reactions?
Yeah, I think you hit on it. It was we needed the spark of energy. I felt like it permeated the fan base. It kind of felt like, hey, I guess all hope. I guess part of the reason we had gotten so down, it wasn't just losing to South Carolina and kind of finishing the season on a and Notre Dame finishing the season on kind of a sour note. It was that we kind of lost hope, I think, and it's amazing like what kind of a galvanizing force hope is. And I think just just what having Cade Klubnik in there, I think it just kind of breathed some fresh air and some fresh light into the program and even the defense. I think it kind of rubbed off on them as well.
I agree. I think we'll get into sort of like both sides of the ball, what we saw, how this game played out. But, um, I think you said it was like a spark that Cade provided. I think both sides of the ball looked a little bit lackadaisical at the beginning when DJ went in there for a couple of different series. North Carolina scored. I think we were worried like, oh man, can this offense that just did what it did against South Carolina come back from like a 14-point deficit, or is this going to be a really long, annoying night? And I think you're right. A spark is really what Cade brought, and you could just see energy level of the team. The sideline, the body language, probably even the coaches too. Just really feeling Cade, and he definitely brought it. And we'll get into kind of implications of this and how much we should look into this performance considering the opponent, not only the opponent, but also like what they've looked like down the stretch of the season and some guys that are missing in the defense. But we're not here to put a wet blanket on this victory just yet. It was a lot of fun. And if you kind of take a step back, Cody, I think it was really important to get this win as a Clemson program. This is Dabo's 8th ACC title. If we kind of give this one away, we've got some potential turnover this offseason. Florida State's on the rise. Divisions are gone in the ACC, so no longer can you get an advantage by like coming away with a win against NC State. Like they could come back and face you again if they're a good team. So we should not take any ACC title for granted as Clemson fans. 8th in the Dabo era, it's a pretty big deal.
Agreed. It's, there was a time when ACC championships, I mean, my last year at Clemson was the CJ Spiller's senior year. We almost won that one. And it just felt like, we're so close to doing something so, important. And I remember how sad everyone was walking out of the Clemson bar, TDs. that
Mhm.
night. So yeah, now it's just something we come to expect. And if we were not to have won, we'd be a little bit more upset. So yeah, I'm with you. Don't take it for granted.
Yeah, I mean the big headline in this game is obviously Cade Klubnik, and we typically start off these recap shows with offense, then we talk defense, then we talk special teams and what it all means. We're not necessarily here. I don't think folks are tuning in at this point to get like the quarter by quarter, blow by blow of this game. But really, it was the Cade show. Club level came in. DJ started out really not, really not looking that capable, and part of it could be he was reading the writing on the wall. He knew the coaching staff. I mean, possibly in practice this week, Cade was getting first team snaps. I'm pretty sure that was happening, and I think with DJ, I mean, we can unpack this quite a bit here, but he's been prone, I think, to some sort of mental defeat, self-defeatism, Cody. And I think that's what we saw in those first couple series. And whether he thought it was a foregone conclusion or whatever, no one's gonna know. Um, but it was clear he wasn't the guy on Saturday night.
Yes. And people talk about DJ all year like as if he was like the static force of production. And that's couldn't be further from the truth. He was not consistent game to game. Well, he did have a somewhat of a consistent streak there from I think it was game 3 to game 7 or game, yeah, 3 to 7. But even within games, you would see him, and you saw that in South Carolina game. He would go from looking like the first two drives, like, oh, he's come out to play today. But by the end of the game, he was like the worst version of DJ I think I've seen, including 2021 last year DJ. So yeah, from the onset, you could tell, and who knows like what's going on in his head. That I don't want to try to get inside of someone's psyche, but seeing how fast he was to hit the transfer portal, I can't help but wonder if like he just was ready to move on from Clemson, and and best of luck to him. He has every right to, and I still think there's potential there for him. I don't know if it's NFL potential, but he's definitely got skill. And what's so crazy is like how good he was against, let's say, like Florida State at points, against Wake Forest, and then how bad he was in the fourth quarter against South Carolina. It's just night and day.
Yeah, I think Cody coming up here, we're gonna have a little bit of downtime before the Orange Bowl game. We'll obviously have a long off season. I'd love to get Jarrett back on the show. He and I did a DJ episode this last summer, kind of talking about our expectations, how this season might play out for him, what his, what the conclusions of that might look like. So I think we can revisit that, recap it a little bit, just looking through the DJ lens. We can move on, but I'm with you. Wish the guy the best. I think you heard some of his post game comments. Really class act. Guy never got down. I feel like also, you saw him come in as hyped as he was. I think I was kind of looking with hesitance toward DJ coming in as like, oh, is he going to be, this cocky dude? Never was that. Seemed to always be, just a really solid team player and a really solid guy. So wish him the best. I think, and we'll touch on this when we connect with Jarrett. Like, I think there is a world where there just wasn't, where someone can scheme around DJ's skill set and he can like plug into an offense that does, tailor to his specific attributes. I just don't know that that was like this offense, this playbook, this set of skill position guys, and even like our offensive line and like our run game. So, whatever it is, we wish him well. He's gone. It's the Cade era. Klubnik, Cody had, he went 20 for 24. And I think all four of those balls ended up being like drops or pass breakups. Not really like off the mark at all. Like he was just really laser focused. I forget how many consecutively he had there. But it was like the kid can't miss. He was obviously scrambling a little bit too. He led the team in rushing yards. So just an all out incredible performance from him. I don't know, like any kind of highlights in your mind from this game, like what you thought was maybe Cade's best play that gave you the most optimism moving forward.
I mean, several of his passes. I mean, there were several. I mean, the Cole Turner pass stands out. It's more like the way that he kind of was the rising tide for the wide receivers. Joseph Ngata looked like a completely different. He actually had improved throughout the season, and I saw a better. He was better this year than he had been through any point in his career. But he looked really good on Saturday, and hopefully he comes back. But yeah, just the way that like, I've heard all year gripes about the wide receivers, and some of it rightfully so, but it's always about like drops. In 2016, there were so many drops. Mike Williams even was dropping a lot of balls for Deshaun Watson, but like great quarterbacks just put it away, put it out of their mind, and they just go back.
Yeah.
And there were actually two drops for Cade, and the fact that so he was he had four incompletions. Two of those were just drops from Antonio Williams and actually Cole Turner. He just went right back to it and completed the next pass. And you have to wonder, again with DJ, when there's a drop, I wonder how much that mentally undoes him. So not to talk too much about DJ, everything was about Cade, but yeah, just the way that the offense moved. Highlight more of a broad level or a broader highlight is just first down efficiency. I know this defense wasn't good, all the caveats, not a good defense, but they were racking up. I don't know the average of it. I believe it was like 7 or 8 yards on first down. Like how? You know what I mean? We haven't been able to do that all year. And a
Yeah.
lot of the gripes of play calling have been predictable run plays. With Cade, everything was there. And when an offense can get that much production on first down, it all goes to efficiency ratings. That's national championship level good.
100%. And you pair that with a really solid defense that Clemson does have and did show on Saturday night. I mean, I think that's the point, is if you want to go ahead and caveat the UNC defense and kind of rein in a little bit the hype for the Clemson offense, UNC has an amazing offense, and they maybe haven't shown it as much the last couple of weeks coming into this game. But Clemson certainly held Drake May under their thumb in this game. No touchdown passes, 2 picks. He did scramble a little bit in this game, running for his life. But anyway, I think like a really solid defense, you compare that with, I think the whole offense looked rejuvenated, Cody, and you got to attribute that to Cade here. If the play calling feels like it can be a little bit more bold with him versus like simplifying
Right.
it, for DJ's reads, that kind of thing,
Right. And
then, what does that mean overall?
yeah, and well, and I should say that first down production allows you to be a little bold too. It affords you more of a risk on second down. That again, when you're constantly getting 2 yards or no gain on first down, it puts you behind the chains, and then you have to rely on DJ to be a hero. It's going to be so interesting against Tennessee to see if we can get similar first down production. I think, of course, Cade is more of a running threat. So just that
But a
factor
different
alone.
one. Yeah, he's a running threat. I mean, I'm not just talking about the speed factor. I mean, speed lends him to being a running threat that'll move outside. Like he'll stretch a defense outside with his legs, and that's something we haven't seen with DJ.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously it opens things up on the perimeter, and it opens things up for the running backs. And you saw that a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in this one, Cody, Mac Brown had some comments after the game about how they were anticipating Will Shipley to get the ball 30 times in this game. And that's really, they actually did not anticipate the Clemson coaching staff going to Cade. So I don't know what that says. Like, should we be like patting Dabo and Brandon Streeter on the back, or does it say more that Mac Brown didn't even think that they could possibly make this change? Kind of speaking to how they didn't make the change earlier in the season. Either way, though, kudos to them for making the right call at the right time. Obviously played out well. I'm going to time box this next question, Cody, to like a 3-minute dialogue between you and me.
I'll do my best.
Okay, whatever. It's not like we could put a long tail on this kite, but how many more games does Clemson win this year if they make the move to Cade? And if you're going to say they should have done it, would you have done it at all before halftime of the South Carolina game this year?
Yeah. It's the fatal flaw. And by the way, you get all kinds of takes online. Everyone has a take now. I mean, we have a podcast, so any dummy can have a take, including us. A lot of people were mad, and it cost us the season. It cost us the playoff. I don't have that sentiment. I'm glad they got it right. I don't fault Dabo for his loyalty. And as I discussed earlier, like there were times when DJ was a really good quarterback, and he just within a single game he could fall on his face and be the worst quarterback in college football. He could be that bad at times. So, how many more games do we win? The fatal flaw, he should have been taken out at some point in the second half of the South Carolina game, and I think that would have been sufficient for us winning. Whether or not we make the playoff from that point on, I don't care. But yeah, at least one more game.
We
I don't
didn't. Yeah, exactly.
know. Yeah, at least one more game, Tully. And if Cade's the quarterback the whole way, shit, maybe we trade off a game and lose one. I have a hard time believing that at this point, though. I think the offense is more
Yeah.
robust, and Streeter, that guy, that he would have figured out a way to win, like working around Cade's skill set.
Yep. Want to get to Streeter here in a minute.
Yeah,
No, I think you make good points. I think where I land on it is like I think there would have been several like a lot more growing pains. Like I think DJ's floor throughout the bulk of the season was much higher than I think where Cade was from a floor perspective. And he showed it even during like coming in against Furman, coming in for a couple series. Forget the opponent at this point, but really didn't show, that he was that lightning in a bottle guy that was like that we saw in that series at the end of the Georgia Tech game, or certainly in this North Carolina game. The one thing I think I would have changed, Cody, from the coaching staff perspective, other than like a South Carolina swap out, which was felt very similar to Syracuse. Like once DJ was done, we needed to make that change. So that would be my first change. But I think the other one would just have been, you know, take what you can after that Notre Dame loss, get Cade as many snaps as possible against Louisville, against Miami. Those games were in hand for the most part. I think it would have been fine to, at that point, like I think the playoff was already pretty much shot. Get Cade a lot more snaps so that we could get that development, improved. Because people kept talking about, oh, if he's not showing the coaches in practice, that he's the number one guy on the team. I mean, you kind of do need to see it in a game environment too.
yeah. I think in fairness to Dabo, in hindsight, 100%. I wish that's exactly what they would have done after the Notre Dame game. But in fairness to Dabo, I think he legitimately thought DJ was the best option to win, to get us to the playoff and to potentially win a championship or at least win a playoff game. And I think most Clemson fans would have probably agreed with him at the conclusion of the Notre Dame game because he actually finished the game playing pretty well. And,
Yeah.
and
We said it at the
yeah,
time, Cody. I mean, you were there, I was there, Ben was there. Like DJ didn't. He's we The coaches said this about the South Carolina game, which I kind of disagree with. But DJ did not lose us the Notre Dame game. I think it was like a lack of an offense, top to bottom,
it makes you
and then they
wonder
ran
though,
it all.
like whenever you have a leader who's like a true leader, sorry, like DJ has, like you mentioned it, he is an upstanding guy in a lot of ways. A true leader, like an alpha male. Sorry, it's people don't like to hear about that toxic masculinity, but in football, amongst men, sometimes it's good to have guys that are true leaders, and it just seems that Cade is that, and that alone, even if he doesn't isn't as talented, can be the galvanizing force. And again, that's why I think it kind of permeated into the defense as well.
Yeah. So you're saying, I guess my point is DJ himself, his play perhaps did not, cost us the Notre Dame game, but maybe like he
Right.
did not elevate the team, galvanize the team behind him, put the team on his back, go lead him to victory, like stem the bleeding, all that. That didn't happen.
Agreed.
And I
Yeah.
agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Streeter. So I want to kind of maybe eat crow. I'm not sure, the right way to put it. Coming into this game, exiting South Carolina, like I was right there with, my pitchfork and my torch, talking about, look, the experiment is over. Streeter's been on the staff several years. Like he had his shot. He's a quarterback coach. Why can't he get Cade Klubnik up to speed? Couldn't develop DJ. Like this offense is lackluster. Like what's going on here? Um, Time to replace him. Time to bring in new ideas. Like all this stuff. I mean, I wasn't like screaming that from the rooftops, but definitely what I was feeling, even if I didn't say it out loud. And I've like coming off this game, I don't want to overreact too much to one game. Where I'm at though, Cody, is like I want to give Streeter and this offensive coaching staff like another year to have a proof of concept, and another year with a rejuvenation at quarterback. That position is so critical. We are spoiled as Clemson fans. We have seen it time and again here what a elite leader of a quarterback can do for your entire football team. Um, we may have that. We may have that twice over with Chris Vizina coming in. I I'm willing to stay the course with Streeter, and let's see how we do against Tennessee coming up here. But I don't know. I think like I do want to be conscious of us making like too many rash decisions, with the coaching staff. I do think there are spots on this coaching staff where Clemson could potentially make some changes, bring in some new outside ideas. And there's ways you can do that without like hiring. I mean, maybe we hire a co-OC to come in with Streeter, to help him, with offensive design. I know Kyle Richardson was that guy. We don't know the influence that he's had on this offense either. So I'm open to, different changes happening. I'm not saying like let's lock everyone in and roll them all back. I just think like Streeter as an offensive coordinator and as a kind of play caller and designer, I'm willing to kind of run it back with him. I think the only thing that I would say is like it'd be nice to see him start to take a little bit more accountability for like when things go wrong, kind of attributing some of that. But I think he was
Yeah.
also defending his guy DJ. So what do you think?
Yeah. It's complicated, right? Like I think it goes back to hope a little bit. Up until Cade came in against North Carolina, I don't think a lot of people had a lot of hope for 2023. Like what it's going to be another year of what it's been, except it might even be worse. I think that's kind of and we also couldn't diagnose. No one could. The smartest of Clemson fans couldn't diagnose exactly how much DJ was a factor. And in any given moment, how much DJ was a factor. Like, are the wide receivers really this bad? And we still don't know for sure. Is the offensive line
Mm-hmm.
like are they as good as they were, back when Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson were here? Like, no one knew like to what extent, and we all know like kind of the galvanizing force. I've said that multiple times that a quarterback can be. We were unsure. But I will say I try to factor in that DJ is very volatile. He has some highs, he has some lows, and sometimes like I said, they happen in the same game. I saw a lot of creativity in the play calling. He had just Tony Elliott. If any people have forgotten, like he was the most bland, lack of creativity. It was so obvious what we were going to do. If he didn't have a great quarterback, it wasn't good. DJ and anyhow, I
He
think
couldn't scheme that quarterback above his talent level. I think like
I
that's my read on the Tony Elliott offense.
agreed. It kind of goes back. I don't want to go down too far this the rabbit hole, but the 2019 game, the LSU game, they had a great talent. It was one of the best offenses ever, but the delta between 2019 LSU with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they had some great players, and Clemson with Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, and T. Higgins, Justin Ross. It was too wide. Clearly, there were some problems there. Now, is Brandon Streeter the answer? I don't know, but he had two really good running backs and a third with Pace, who was injured. He used a lot of two running back personnel. He had two good tight ends, excuse me, when wide receivers weren't producing, and he'd mix them in. He would move Brennan Still out to wide receiver just to get edge blocking and just to give the defense a different look. And then someone cited on Twitter a third down percentage. Like we had, I think, the third highest in the nation. Like that is 100% on play calling, creativity, and breaking tendencies. I think that allows you to be that successful. It might not be third in the nation, but I believe it's very high. We did extremely well on third down percentage.
Yeah, we're 10th. Well, first of all, I'm going to attribute it to listener of the show, Dustin Black. Shout out to him.
Thank you,
He
Dustin.
is, let's see, at Dustin B429 on Twitter. He posted in 2022 here, Clemson was third nationally in red zone scoring, Cody, and then 10th nationally in third down conversion percentage, but 20th in point per game. And I think, his point that he was making is that you need good play calling to be 10th nationally in third down conversion, and you need good play calling to have that good of a red zone scoring percentage. Like you got to maximize your talent. You're right, Cody. Like you don't do that against solid defenses every time. But to be only 20th in points per game, I think Dustin's point is that was turnover led. I think, we talked about it in the chat before this. There's other factors of this offense this year. You mentioned it, kind of simplified playbook leading to a tough first down, second down kind of play calling situation. I think those things stall drives out more than turnovers throughout the year.
Agreed. I think, yeah, predictable play calling on first down with runs. Furman even had our number on that, where they were, and someone mentioned tip and plays. I don't know, but let's just say it's predictable. So like, running
Yeah.
running the ball and getting A gap runs. I mean, it's the cost of doing business. You have to show that you're willing to put that. You're willing to run for the defense to open up other things. But at some point, I mean, that was a problem. But at the same time, you have Shipley, you have two really good running backs. So I could see it both ways. But like to your point, and to Dustin Black, who pointed that out of how well we've done, that is the mark of good play calling. And then what we can't know for sure is like, can Streeter with a better quarterback and a better leader, like can he help transcend the offense? Can other position groups become the beneficiary of that? And by the way, I think our offensive line had a pretty good season. No one's talking about that. But I think they're pretty good. I think that everyone talks about 2016 and 18 as if our offensive lines were that of Bama. They never were. I think this offensive line's right there with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cody, at some point we'll have to rename and come up with our season awards and give grades out for the position groups. We'll do that when we can get Ben and Jared on the show. But I'm joking about the rename part. But anyway, there'll be a lot of time to look back on this season. But +1 to your offensive line praise. I think in this one, to maybe put a bow on it, we'll move on to the defense. We got a lot of other, a lot of other stuff has happened this week that I think we need to address. So we'll get out of this ACC championship recap here shortly. You mentioned it though, like Joseph Ngata had a great game. Emergence of Cole Turner, first Clemson receiver this year to go over 100 yards. He just did 101 yards on 3 catches. Pretty good efficiency. I forget, Cody. I think that took us back to the Wake Forest game last year, when I think Bo Collins had just went off and had 100 yards. So it's a lot of games, a lot of snaps for receivers to not get over 100 yards. But what I wanted to maybe comment on and talk about is like you actually saw like right away in the first quarter once they made that switch, it sure felt like when they would go to the sideline throws, like these receivers were driving the corner, the safety, or the linebacker away. Like it just looked like the effort level that something had clicked and they had figured something out. And props to them for putting in that effort. But I think that just goes back to kind of the Cade effect.
Right. And separation, they always talk about separation. It's like, it's really tough for us as fans that can't see wide receivers downfield to really call separation. And to what extent the quarterback recognizes separation or throws a receiver open, we have no clue. But clearly, Cade was allowing his receivers to get separation or he was throwing them open. Something, again, it's something to do with a new quarterback. And again, the caveats of North Carolina's defense. The only thing I'll say is, yes, they were depleted. They weren't very good. The secondary was not good at all. But I mean, what's it supposed to look like? Like Trevor Lawrence played a lot of bad teams during his day, and it's like, what did it look like? It looked different than when Kelly Bryant was playing really bad teams in his day. And I'd say like it looked the way it's supposed to look if you're a dominating offense. Like that's how it should look, not the way our first 2 drives went.
Yeah, very well said. Um, well, again, I think it was definitely Clemson. I think outcoached North Carolina in this game. Um, Great production across the board. I think rolling Cole Turner in and getting in those snaps. Trust your guys. Find your guys off the bench. They did empty the bench a little bit, Cody. I mean, we had guys like Hamp Green get a catch in this game. Ty Herbstreit. Um, would love to have seen more balls go Adam Randall's way, as well. Drew Sweeney had a couple of catches. He obviously also had the fake PAT run in. Just real petty move from Dabo. Love to see it.
Yeah, there's no reason. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, oh well, maybe we're getting ready, we're dialing something up for. No, actually, like if we needed that in the bowl game, that we don't have it anymore. So like there was no reason in doing that.
Yeah,
It was
I
fun.
know.
I was laughing at it
And
more
look,
than anything.
like we joked around coming into the game, like let's run up the score. We need style points to impress the committee. With Cade Klubnik is the new Clemson. We need those style points. I mean, it was never really that serious. Like 38-10 versus 39-10 makes no bearing on
Yeah.
anything. But whatever, it was fun.
Bush League. He's pissed off. Dabo's pissed off two coaches this year. The other was I believe it was Boston College, where we had our first
That's
team
right.
on the field at the end of the game, and I can't remember the BC's coach, but like him and Dabo
Yeah,
were
Jeff
cool, but
Heffley.
he was pissed at the end. It's like, hey man, I got to get my quarterback's confidence is waning. I gotta keep him hot, get him ready for the next game.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think maybe he lost a bet to his son Drew over Thanksgiving weekend somehow, and he's like, "Dad, you got to let me run one in," and maybe he had to pay up. That's my theory.
it made no sense. Yeah, if you're going for style points, you get them through touchdowns, not 2 point conversions. Hey, I gotta say,
Exactly.
he had Kathleen speed though on that run. It wasn't Dabo's speed.
Touche.
Yeah.
No, that's right. I agree. All right, Cody. Well, that's enough for the offense. Great effort on the day. 39 points. You know, they did the job. It was awesome. Why don't we move it over to the defense? Man, Cody, turnovers. They make a huge difference. In this one, Clemson's defense forced three from North Carolina. Some of those were really timely. Obviously, you had the Nate Wiggins pick six. Um, awesome to see. I think that one was forced by Tyler Davis, really getting after May and bothering him and being a distraction. I don't know what May was doing on that throw, but across the board, stellar defensive effort. I think you saw them and even saw players after the game really get a spark from that offense and bring their A game in this. This one really felt like we started to see the just the promise of what this defense could be, or what we were told they were going to be all season. I saw that Brian Brzee had the number one player rating from PFF, Pro Football Focus College. Of any player playing in any championship game throughout the weekend, it was Brian Brzee. Kind of a quiet, I mean, the dude's super disruptive and hard to miss on the field. It was not necessarily one of those games where he was just, constantly coming up with sacks and passes deflected, all that. But I think on a rewatch, you all will see what a great game that Brzee had. So, across the board, props to Wes Goodwin calling a good one to bottle up Drake May. These players rising to the challenge, going out there getting a championship.
Agreed. And I did a rewatch, but just like any other Clemson fan, I only watched the offense. I had to see it again, and I skipped right over the defense, and that's shameful. There's been many times where I've wanted to watch defense more than offense, especially during the Venables era. But
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
just
say the coach matters with that effort, but yeah,
yeah, I agree though. The defensive line showed the promise. They lived up to kind of the billing early in the year. And you've seen like shades of that throughout the year. It's strange that it hasn't been consistent. But Nate Wiggins, and now I'm just kind of reeling off the highlights that everyone's kind of seen. He really has gotten better throughout the year. I worry about how big his head is going to get though if he keeps getting better, and what kind of celebration dances we have to look forward to next year. But I'm joking.
worry. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
he's really come along, and like we've needed that. And I can also say the same for Sheridan Jones, who you don't see very much celebration from him because no one throws his way like ever, which is a testament to how well he's been, how great he's been since coming back from injury. I hope he comes back next year.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we will get one more game from this defense this year in its current configuration. I think coming up here, we'll talk a little bit about the future look ahead to departures moving into next season. But really great to, if this is the last hurrah, last run for some of these guys in a Tiger uniform. I guess we have the bowl game coming up, but great to see these guys if it was one of their last showings on the field together. Continue to get, you could probably say one of the top defensive guys on the team, Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter. They got to be like 1-2 in some order over the last couple months. Really stellar game from those guys. Trotter had 3 sacks in the game.
Right.
Incredible.
And one important thing, talking about flexibility and scheme, and we know Venables had plenty of that. Putting Isaiah Simmons all over the field in 2019. We had I guess it was referred to as a 4-5-3. We had 4 linebackers. Excuse me. I guess that would be a 4-4-3.
4-4-2, I think. Oh,
Four.
sorry, 4-4-3. You're
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Anyhow, we're using Wade Wood as kind of a linebacker hybrid with a safety, just because we didn't really have a lot of safeties, and we had some injuries, and apparently, like, I mean, you can see it. Like, you rarely see freshmen coming in with the instincts and the know how at that position. So that's yeah, very. You mentioned Carter and Trotter, who are both sophomores. They're coming back. You have Wade, like that's a really promising future for the defense. In the case that Trenton Simpson leaves, and he most likely will.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, future is bright on this defense. Just in terms of some of this skill position guys that we will have at least one more season. It looks like, obviously anything's possible in the era of the transfer portal. But great to see that, where the youth exists on the team. Again, we mentioned Tyler Davis's name before. Miles Murphy had kind of a quiet but solid game as well. So some of those guys are going to be the question mark of, they've got some extra eligibility left based on the COVID season, or just in general wanting to finish their degree. In the case of Miles Murphy, possible those guys come back. We'll have to see. We're not really here to speculate on the reasoning why they should or shouldn't. But if they do want to sniff that playoff, and get that, like, add that to their repertoire, obviously there's some NIL considerations to be had here too. The delta between that and a rookie contract in the NFL, depending what round they go, might not be that huge. So sure would be nice to see some of these guys back. I know Rook and KJ Henry accepted Senior Bowl invites already. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be gone. I think KJ Henry might be all out of eligibility at this point, Cody, but maybe not. So anyway, we got to see on that front, but not much more I have on the defense here. Just another stellar effort. Hats off to Wes Goodwin again. Cool. And last thing, I mean, I guess we ought to talk about special teams. I know we talked about the hold moving into a 2-point conversion, Cody. Only the one field goal from BT Potter, but it was a 52-yarder. So the kid still got it. Gonna be playing on Sundays next year, I'm sure. He's awesome, great Tiger. Aiden Swanson had 3 punts, and then Jack Smith came in and boomed one for 47. So good to see on that front. Nothing really to speak of in the kick return or the punt return game. We were turning them over a fair bit. They did score twice on the day, and that was about it. So yeah, I mean, not much in special teams. Impact and implications of this game, Cody, the ACC Championship. I did just want to comment. I mean, after this game and after this season, we're no longer going to have divisions. So it should really be the best 2 teams in the conference that play moving forward. A stat that we had come up with and tweeted out, a couple weeks ago was, there's been, all the way back to, I think it was 2005 or 2006, we had these divisions, Atlantic and Coastal. In those years, I guess, let's do the math here. It would be 18 years. Clemson won 9 of the Atlantic Division titles. Florida State's next with 5. And then BC and Wake both won 2 apiece, and nobody else won any. So Wake Forest, I'm sorry, NC State and Louisville, neither of them took home a division title in that time frame. I mean, it just shows the dominance Clemson has had. I think if we play it for the next 18 years, you kind of keep coaching staff intact in this system. That might end up being the case for ACC titles in the next 18 years, where we win half of them. So, good. I would have thought Florida State would have had more in that time frame, Cody.
Yeah, I would think the same. It's a lot. It's dominance, and it needs to be appreciated. Like when there's criticism of Dabo, it's not intended to be like, what I don't like is like, hey, let me give you historical perspective of how good Clemson's been. It's like, no shit, I get it, but like, I'm just want to focus on the here and now because I'm a fan, and that's what we do, and that's why we love the sport. But yeah, it's good
I guess, Cody, are
sometimes.
you saying, I want to clarify your point. Are you
What?
saying, like, when people come to you and say, you need to appreciate this time because I was around when Tommy West and Tommy Bowden were here and we used to lose a bunch. You should appreciate it.
Yeah,
Like,
or fans from other fan bases saying you should be happy because I'd love to
yeah.
have the success you've had. It's like, no, we are very happy. We're going to build statues for Dabo, like we will, but we're not quite there yet. We want to
Yeah.
be in the
It doesn't mean
moment
you
and,
have to be.
keep building the legacy. We want more trophies because Dabo is that good, and like he could keep bringing them in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the opportunity cost is high. Like
Yeah,
all the tools are there, all the, the talent, the coaching, the facilities, like the resources are all there. Like we kind of should expect more at this point. And as I said on the last show, like who has been jazzing us up the most about expectations? It's Dabo himself with the best is the standard, the best is yet to come.
that's right. And by the way, I'm not. I think it's good. Like basically your summary of how well we've done winning the Atlantic is as often as we have every other year, essentially half the time. It's good to have historical perspective. It's good to zoom out every now and then. But yeah, I was just saying, yeah, after we lose to South Carolina in a game that we shouldn't have lost, I'm not going to be as prone to zoom out. I need to, I
That's
need
right.
to, I need to, I need to, that's how I'm going to mourn the loss. I'm going to be mad for a little while.
Yeah. We are not
Yeah.
here to grump shame anybody for sure. Um, cool. Well, let's move on from this game. Great to get that 11th win. Play for a 12th win coming up in the Orange Bowl against Tennessee. Cody, Clemson has beaten an SEC team in every season they've played a game against the SEC, going back to 2011. In 2010, you probably remember, um, we lost at Auburn to Cam, and then at home against South Carolina, Stephen Garcia, 29-7. Those were brutal losses at the time. I think we were all very optimistic coming off that 2009 season that you talked about earlier, CJ Spiller's last year. We had Ellington. We were, really optimistic about, carrying on the progress. And those were just two brutal losses. Um, Clemson did win an ACC title that game, but then we had the West Virginia game. It's also forgettable. But every year since that, beat Auburn in 2012. You'll notice some clips from that game in our intro on the podcast. And it's just been a beat the SEC ever since. 2020 being the exception. This year, we got to beat Tennessee to continue that streak, though. We'll get our chance in Miami, in the Orange Bowl, the really Orange Bowl. I think Cody in this one, some of the early keys, and we're not here to preview that game necessarily. Tennessee, kind of a rough defense, really high-powered offense. They're without Hendon Hooker in this game. Their backup's really capable, a little bit of a journeyman, big arm. I don't think they're going to take too big of an offensive drop off with that guy, especially with a month to prepare for us. So I think it's going to be a really competitive game. Probably bet the over. And I'm excited to see what Cade Klubnik can do against their pretty lackluster defense that the last time all of us saw them, they're getting their ass kicked by South Carolina.
Yeah. I have, I guess I have a very generic take. I think the team that wants it more, it's going to win. I know that's horrible. But I think the team that actually cares, it's actually a good matchup. I think both teams will take it seriously. I think when you're playing Kansas, like you're just not going to get up as much as if it's Clemson or Tennessee. I think both see each other as a formidable opponent and a good game. But if to the extent we have a lot of guys that are not going to play, and Clemson hasn't really had this problem, we'll see how that unfolds over the next couple weeks. But we really need a lot of depth on defense, is all I'll say. We need all guys on the defensive line ready to keep building up their draft stock, because that unit, like we are talking about earlier, that unit will probably be the difference in the game. There will be a lot of pace
Yeah.
by Tennessee. So to the extent we can get to their quarterback, their backup quarterback, I think we should be able to win.
Yeah, no, good call on that. And I think you're referring to like, are there opt outs? Are there guys that for whatever reason don't play in this game on either side of the ball? Like that could have a big effect. Yeah, if they're playing with pace and tempo, you just gotta hope we got the conditioning for it. I don't know that we've got necessarily the bodies in the secondary to slot in there, but you mentioned Wade Wood as getting in. Yeah, it'd be great if we need to change up the formations a bit, even go three down linemen up front, see what that does for us. But Tennessee sure seems, Cody, like they can protect their quarterback. Um, they were doing okay, I guess, against South Carolina, but in any event, I think it's gonna be like to your point. I think it's gonna be a good game. I think hopefully they don't have like quite the opt outs that other bowl games are gonna have, and it's one of the more entertaining, New Year's Six games at least.
Yeah, I think just having Cade makes our team so much more exciting. And Tennessee was already very exciting. Having watched them a few times this year, so I think it should be of the non-playoff games, probably the most watchable game. I'd have to look through, but yeah, very
Yeah,
orange bowl indeed.
right. Cool. Any thoughts from you about how the college football playoff rankings went, the matchups, like anything you got to say about that?
Not it's like a who's who do I not want to win? I really didn't pay attention to it. I don't know who Ohio State jumped in the last, and I don't know if it was fair. I
They
have
jumped
not,
USC basically. That was it. Like
and
last
that's
week they were set up.
I hear the argument you shouldn't get penalized for playing a game, but that's crap. They should have been penalized for losing in the way they lost. Talking about
Yeah, I think it's the
USC,
how. Right.
the
Like
how,
all
yeah,
year their defense was already like somewhat lackluster, propped up by a high turnover margin. If you lose in that fashion, not being able to tackle and play fundamental football, like what confidence do we have that you're going to be able to then do that against Georgia?
right.
And you've already like this is your second time losing to the same team as well.
I'm sure
Yeah, so I
Vegas
think they
feels
got
the
that right.
same. Like they would be favored. Ohio State would be like more favored than USC would be facing Georgia. Like I think Ohio State has a
Right.
legitimate chance to win if they play Georgia. Not a great
Yeah.
chance, but a chance.
Yeah. Well, they will get their chance. That game's in Atlanta. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has not played at all this season, he's had a lingering injury. He lit up the Rose Bowl last year. He's not going to play in this game. I think there was hope that he would come back. He's going to the draft. But
Oh,
still, Ohio
is that
State's a
considered
very
as
dangerous, talented
surprising?
team.
Was that considered surprising that
Going to
he
the
opted out? I understand he was hurt.
yeah, it is a I guess like it kind of depends. It's surprising that he wouldn't come back to play in the playoff because that could be like a showcase for him that he's like, hey, check me out, NFL teams. This injury hasn't slowed me down any. But going up, I mean, he could easily get hurt against Georgia. So I get it from his perspective. Like his draft stock may not fall any by opting out.
Yeah. Maybe he talked to
I don't know.
DJ and DJ's like, don't play against Georgia. It might ruin you.
I mean, I do think they broke him. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Um,
So who could win?
yeah, and
Who
then
could beat Georgia out of the other three opponents then?
well, it's Ohio State does play them, and then it's TCU, Michigan on the other side of the bracket in the Fiesta Bowl. None of the above. I think it's Georgia, like clear path. Um, and we can maybe get into this when we talk coming up, like future season roster management stuff. But um, man, I just think, I mean, it's very impressive for Kirby. He's just kind of taken over recruiting and starting to manufacture that into just a complete juggernaut.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to say this, but we won two championships. We worked really hard to get there. And I for them to win two, I hope they don't, but for them to win two, I'm not gonna say it undermines what we did, but it feels like that a little bit. So I really, really hope they can't pull it out. And I think the teams that we had to go through and beat in the years that we did, and considering we lost LSU, that was like an all-time team. Like we really had a tough road ahead, and the last 2 years have been relatively weak compared to the previous years. So
Yeah, I
Georgia's
think Kirby,
capitalizing.
one way I would say it, I agree with you on that. One way I would say it is Clemson is due an easy natty, aren't we?
Yeah,
Because the two we got sure were hard, and the two we lost in the title game were against all-time great teams.
yeah. The only shot that we've had at an easy natty was the first one, 2015. That would have been the easiest one, and it wasn't easy.
I mean, I thought that Alabama team was quite good, but yeah, I guess you had
Yeah,
Coker in a quarterback, so yeah, not quite a world beater. You had Derrick Henry at the
yeah,
peak of his powers. Um,
true.
no, but you're right. It would have been nice to get that one. I think we do if we had like any one of 8 different things go our way in that game, but
Yeah.
whatever. That's ancient history.
So Ben's not here tonight, so I'll just say this for him: Go blue, because I know he's got his Michigan jersey on. They're his number two team. So
Yeah, I don't think TCU can even come close to beating Georgia. So yeah, I let's see Michigan give it a shot, see what happens.
yeah,
All right, Cody. Yeah, we'll obviously be back on to kind of do a more in-depth preview of the Orange Bowl against Tennessee. Talk about other interesting bowl games coming up. Definitely looking forward to bowl season. Some interesting matchups across the board. We don't need to go into those here, but Should be fun. Always a good time. But let's talk about kind of the other big event that's happened. The opening of the transfer portal period, where players can officially opt into the portal, start signing letters of intent, and you know, applying to these schools and transferring officially. That opened up, I think, on Sunday night, midnight, moving into Monday. Um, on the first day, we saw some announcements come through on Sunday. Some of the guys had already, essentially opted into the portal earlier in the season. I'm looking at Sergio Allen and Dakari Collins for that. But all in all, as of right now, again, we're recording this Wednesday night. We had 9 Clemson players opt into the transfer portal, opt to leave Clemson. Cody, that's 9 guys. That's on top of 3 medical retirements that Clemson has had since basically spring practice. Hunter Rayburn, offensive lineman, Landon Sanders, a safety, and then Mason Trotter, another offensive lineman. Those were known attrition points for this team moving into next year. Then you've got 9 additional underclassmen moving into the portal. That's some serious attrition, and we're also going to have some planned and unplanned NFL departures coming up, and graduation, and guys exhausting their eligibility. So it's going to leave a pretty big dent in the returning scholarship counts for this team. We're confident Dabo and the staff is going to be able to sign a strong 2023 class. I think they're going to have some room to sign some other guys, maybe not by this December period, but by February. But that definitely leaves the door open, and we'll talk about like who's exiting here. That leaves the door open for Dabo and the coordinator of the portal activity for Clemson. Those guys in the portal, here we see it. What do you think?
Well, testing. You hear me? Damn it. Totally.
Go ahead, man.
Can you hear me? God damn it.
I hear you now. Yep.
Okay. We can finish it up.
I can hear you.
I'll
Yeah.
cite the breakups for Ben, or the mess ups. So you're just, I couldn't hear what all you were saying. I know you're talking about the portal.
I was like, I think this is going to be the year we finally take one. What do you think?
Okay. I'll let it go quiet and I'll start. I think it has to be the year. If you look at the numbers, you mentioned 12. There were 11 last year. I think you mentioned on the show last week, like self-imposed sanctions. Like we're at that level. We're always flying a little bit under that 85 scholarship number. And at this point, I mean, when you factor in that kind of attrition, the one-way transfer portal, coupled with the fact, like you might say, well, how do you offset that? Well, it is by recruiting, and you do need higher numbers. You need more freshmen. But the thing about freshmen is a lot of them don't pan out, and others take time to pan out. So we're working from behind big time. So it's not a thing of if we should, it's the thing of like, you can't field a football team next year, at least not a championship team, if Dabo doesn't get some depth through the portal. And the thing, and you also, one other thought, in previous years, we made up ground late in recruiting. Look, you can go that route, but it's not a winning strategy long term. We hit it big and I think it was 2015 maybe, with Isaiah Simmons and Trayvon Mullen and Kayvon Wallace. Like that was just, I mean, 3 huge hits. That is much more the exception and not the rule. So you have to do 2 things. One is the portal, and the other is you have to account for some attrition, which is something Dabo hasn't done in the past. So you have to build in that number, and it's tough. And I respect Dabo for not running guys off. I really admire that about him, but you've got to build in a number. Again, like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be 10, but I think you have to, maybe cut it in the middle and say 5, account for 5. And what I mean, do that on the front end so you can start building relationships with recruits. And that's going to net you out higher caliber players in the long term than trying to grab someone in the 11th hour.
Yeah, Cody. I mean, I I think I'm not necessarily suggesting Clemson move to a place where they're taking 5 to 10 portal transfers a year. I think there is a world where Clemson can change its high school recruiting strategy only in the sense of the numbers that they take long term and do what Georgia has done, which is essentially this year they didn't take any transfers. They also didn't have any leave. They just continue to rock a top 3 recruiting class out of high school every year and sign a really large class. I think if Clemson goes bigger with its class takes, that gives you more bites of the apple in terms of hit rate on these freshmen. And if Dabo, has his philosophies about how he wants to build a team culture and he makes promises in living rooms, that he doesn't want to go back on and welch on. Like, I understand that. You just can't do that signing 18, 19, 20, 21 man classes. You got to get closer to 30 or even go north of that if the limitations allow you to plan for that attrition, as you said, which, it's either going to go to the draft or the portal. That seems to be the 2 directions that guys leaving the program go. It's going to happen. It's not going to stop. Like, it's the direction it's going. So I think the easiest way for Clemson to look at the portal is, are there those like, freak situations where we just happen to be like threadbare at a position group? Are there guys in the portal or guys who could be coaxed into the portal that Dabo and the coaching staff gave an offer to previously? Like that guy fit the culture 12 months ago. Do we feel comfortable bringing him in now, kind of thing? That might be the move.
Right. I mean, it's more or less mandatory at this point, and really for the next 2 seasons, because that's just the nature of, it's the nature of freshmen. You can starting next season, build in a larger number to account for some attrition. But when are the recruits of 2024 going to make an impact at Clemson? That could be 4 seasons from now. So like at least the next 2 seasons and maybe longer, you've got to make up for some numbers. And by the way, like, I don't think the transfer portal is all that it's made out to be, or all that we perceive it as. I think it's going to be tough to find the right guys, and you do have some risk with some guys that aren't culture fits, and maybe they become cancerous within the locker room. I doubt it, but there are some risks there. And there's also NIL stuff that Clemson has to get into in order to gain their services. And how does that, what does that mean for the teammates that they're with? There's parts like that you have to consider, but ultimately it's like, you don't have a choice. You're out of options. There's only so many walk-ons you can give a scholarship, but you need actual players that could contribute.
Yeah. I mean, I think you touched on it earlier. If your goals are the playoff and a championship, there's just a degree of depth that is talented. You got to recruit. You basically have to have a team that is a 50% plus blue chip ratio. And whether that hits in your recruiting class or who you bring in through the portal, either way, really got to maintain that. I think Dabo has that as a goal: college football playoff and a national championship. Still pretty sure. So yeah, we just got to see that kind of manifest itself. And look, the 2023 recruiting class, like Cody, 12 months ago on this show, I was like super scared, like with Venables leaving, with Tony Elliott leaving, with the state of the program and kind of where things were moving, that I felt fine about the 2022 team and roster and talent. But I was like, once some of these defensive dudes leave, that could be it for Clemson and our ride. And since then, we hired Nick Eason, the defensive recruits, to kind of fill some of these spots we anticipate opening up either this year or next year. Like, some of these dudes are absolute freaks that I would put right up there with Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins and those guys we had coming in. Hope so, like Peter Woods, for instance, and Tamarian Parker. Like, these guys are, it's not like we're restocking the cupboards entirely, but at least at the high end, it's nice to see some of these 5 stars choose Clemson, choose this new coaching staff, as it's evolved since Venables left. So I feel a lot better than I did a year ago, I'll tell you that. But and hopefully we can keep some of these 6-star veteran guys for next year, so that this year's class, coming into February, is a lot more about, great, let's maybe go grab those guys that are going to be like Isaiah Simmons didn't do much his first 1 or 2 years. Like, can we take a shot on some of those more like developmental guys that can turn into those 5 stars on campus?
Right. I think Yeah, I think that's got to be the play. I mentioned you have to go to the transfer portal. We don't have to go through the seniors who have the COVID eligibility or they have a red shirt, or the red shirt eligibility. But there's quite a few,
Yeah.
and yeah,
They're a lot better than a freshman, right? Like,
they're probably better than a transfer, to be honest. I think like Joseph Ngata would be like one of those guys.
yeah.
Rook looks like he's gone, but I think he would have a chance. But yeah, I think the biggest position, not to go down the roster, but I think defensive end in particular just jumps out at me. It's like
Mhm.
we don't want to like start giving our takes because it'll quickly be a dated show because guys may return. But it's Kevin Swint leaves. We don't have a lot of bodies there. And you mentioned we do have some good recruits at defensive end and along the defensive line, but I can't think of the last defensive end that came in that was ready to be a championship level contributor. Like Daquan Bowers maybe. Uh, like Farrell wasn't, Austin Bryant wasn't. So
XT had flashes, but we
right,
really haven't seen him put a full season together. And like everyone talks about, he could come back and take a red shirt this season, come back for next season. Um, what confidence do we have that he's going to play 12, 13, 14, 15 games? Like we haven't seen it. So
right.
yeah, defensive end for sure, Cody. I put that position number one.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot to it'll be an interesting off season. Um, yeah,
Well,
Dabo.
we got
Yeah,
to get,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was gonna say we got to get Quacking Tiger on the show. Give us the breakdown. Give us
Yeah,
what he's hearing coming up
yeah,
here, and obviously also break down the 2023 class.
yeah. The interesting thing with our recruiting, because I don't follow it as closely. I think the NIL, I just kind of lost my taste for it a little bit. But it is true that NIL collectives work as just as the way I suspected they would. It's pay for play. So one thing I see when I look at Clemson's the distribution of like their recruiting classes, I don't see quite. You mentioned some top end defensive line talent, and like yeah, all praise to Nick Eason and that hire. You see some of it there, like Peter Woods, but and you see a good quarterback in Chris Benzina, but you don't see a lot of as many top 50, top 100 recruits as you've seen in years past. And again, maybe the Clemson brand's just kind of fallen off. It certainly has, but hopefully not that much. But you also wonder, it's like these guys are established top 100 players. Do we not have the right NIL infrastructure in place to make sure these guys are compensated? Because most of our players are 4-star, but they're out of the top 100. So again, not complaining, just curious if that's something that's impacting things, and I would love to get QT's take.
Yeah, good call. I mean, I think what you have seen is how the administration at Clemson is responding to the era, and you've got Graham Neff, new athletic director, on the big board at Clemson two times a game during home games right now, kind of pleading with fans to join the NIL collective, back the team. You got these are people who are spending upwards of $10,000 a year on IPTE. He's passing the hat to all of them. So, and I don't know, the NIL collective might be a way for all fans to kind of get involved and kind of help pad the team and back the team. So
Yeah,
it's just it is a chaotic era, Cody. There's no regulation of this stuff. I'm sure there's all kinds of tampering of existing guys on existing rosters and definitely of recruits, planning to come in. So, I mean, until I see a guy lace them up next September, like there's no assurances that any of these guys will stick around. I think college football is going to have to examine a couple of things like the early signing period and the opening of the transfer portal. What this is going to do to bowl game rosters on these teams is going to be pretty devastating. And on some level, I understand like who kind of cares about these exhibition bowl games anyway. I like it's not that big a deal. I think player agency, players being able to move around does make sense, get compensated, like all that. I just think we probably need to move more in a direction of professionalizing this sport. I'm sad to say. It just this right now seems like a crazy half measure that is in no way organized or formalized, and it's going to lend itself to number one, a lot of players I think getting hurt trying to chase a bag. Maybe they're promised that bag and then they find another guy to give it to, and these guys have already opted out of a nice scholarship situation. There's gonna be like hundreds, if not more, stories of bad situations. But I can't blame guys, wanting to go and chase, what's in their best interest. Um, I don't know. I'm not like pro more government here, I guess, Cody. I just think it's it's completely chaotic in the free market right now.
Yeah, and I guess my whole argument along those lines was it didn't have to be this chaotic. We just kind of broke the dam at the after the water had accumulated so high that we're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of chaos that you could have taken it in increments. And what's crazy, Larry Williams has written some really good articles on Tiger Illustrated just about how the portal, while giving players more autonomy, more choice, more freedom, um, by all account, like it was the right thing to do, but it's actually not benefiting the players by and large, which is just so strange. But it's true because a lot of guys aren't. They go to the portal. That's effectively them leaving college football because a lot of guys aren't going to get picked up, and then
Yeah.
others don't get like they completely deprioritize the college education. A lot of them don't. The transfer credits don't, or they don't get the credits transferred. So it's actually not benefiting college football players. So like Dabo, when I know it's so everyone at Clemson knows Dabo's has a good heart and it's not about the money for him. Um, but like a lot of people see him as the evil villain that just has like, free players under him, but he really does believe in the student athlete. And he had that experience and he believes in it. There actually was and is something to that. And those days are gone, and I don't think that it can ever be recaptured because it has to move towards professionalizing. Um, and by the way, why not give 5 years of eligibility and just get rid of the red shirt? It's silly at this point. 5 years, and for the go getters, they can get a graduate degree in that time.
Yeah. I'm down for that. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't really see like what do you want to do? Have guys who play 5 years break some records that don't really matter anyway? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think that'd be fine. Um anyway, I mean, yeah, a lot of this is happening in real time. It's going to be interesting to see where Clemson stacks into the mix. On the one hand, we do not have a very deep alumni base compared to a lot of the teams that I think we compete against for recruits, for national attention, for clout. So Clemson is somewhat of a disadvantage both through, the number of alumni and fans that can pump money into our system and our infrastructure. Our league conference is not doing very much good to help us relative to our competitive peer set either. So this is a situation where, yeah, I think Dabo is going to do things his way and Clemson's unique way where culture matters the most. I think that's something that can help us weather some of the storm a little bit. I would like to see us remain competitive though in certain aspects, and being opportunistic in the portal has to be part of that.
I think so. Yeah. At one point, we were innovating at a time when like minimal innovation was sufficient, and that was like 2012. And now it's like you needed to evolve 30 years in normal college football times just in the last 3 seasons. So like Dabo, and a lot of it's antithetical to like his philosophy, and a lot of what he does is very noble. So, but he's got to change. He doesn't have to do everything different, and but he does. I think has to supplement with some of the portal, some transfers.
Yeah, and Cody, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to maybe address kind of where Dabo is. I think what's maybe been lacking from this program for the last 1 to 2 years is Dabo having sort of a mentor kind of on staff or close to the program on campus. I'm not saying we're seeing that manifest in like problems with Dabo necessarily. You had Thad Turnipseed, you had Dan Radakovich. You had even Terry Bowden was on staff for a couple of seasons before he went off to ULM. And obviously Dabo really respected Bobby Bowden. That was like a continuation, and he was hired under Tommy. So I just think he, for his first maybe decade or so at Clemson, he always seemed to have this kind of, mentor, elder figure around and close to the program. It may be that he does have someone, and I'm kind of ignorant to that, but I think this is a moment where, is there someone that we could bring into Dabo's staff, maybe like David Cutcliffe or somebody else? I'd be interested in something like that. Or, we talk about the offensive coordinator position. Like, is there an opportunity for him to hire someone similar to how he kind of had Chad Morris come in? And Chad Morris seemed to have a decent amount of autonomy when he got to Clemson. Maybe he makes a hire that will allow Clemson to get into the portal era. I mean, I think Dabo is going to protect the culture and the identity of Clemson above all else. But I don't know. I think that I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying like that is a direction where this could go.
I mean, I think I like the idea of the like the elder statesman or like a voice of reason, some kind of a checks and balances. Because
Right.
these guys that you hire
Right.
from within, I just don't see Wes Goodwin going to Dabo yelling at him because hey, I don't see it this way. I bet
Right.
Venables had that conversation like once, and Dabo's like, okay, I'll stand down and you do the you. But the point being, like, there needs to be some friction. But
Right.
and I'm just not seeing. I can't imagine Streeter yelling at Dabo. He probably says yes to whatever Dabo wants. So you
Yeah.
got to have that guy. And by the way, Danny Pearman as the leader of the, like, it's kind of a shady business right now. You got to have some like movers and shakers in the transfer. Like it's tampering. Essentially,
And
it's just
we need someone who's willing to get his hands dirty a little bit. I don't know if Danny Pearman is or is not that guy.
look. He couldn't.
I'd like to see Jeff Scott in that seat, Cody. If
Yeah,
I
I
could be
think
so
he.
bold.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's shady at all, Jeff Scott. But he is a hard worker. He knows about talent acquisition. That's for darn sure. Uh,
Yeah, well, the guy can hustle and recruit Florida. And let's set aside his days at USF. Like, look who he brought in at Clemson's.
yeah,
Like Sammy Watkins. All right, good enough for me. You might get Sammy Watkins. What is it? His cousin, nephew, something like that. He's in our recruiting class target list right now.
yeah.
Stay tuned.
But yeah, well, Danny Pearman is not that guy though. I mean, he couldn't recruit tight ends and offensive linemen at Clemson during our glory days. So I just don't have a lot of hope that in him and getting the top talent because again, a lot of it
Yeah.
is
Well, what I'd like to
back
see out of someone
channeling
like
and yeah,
yeah, agreed. The other role I'd like to see sort of that elder come in and play is like I want them to be the final interview for any coaching staff position. Like to then be able to go to Dabo and be like, look, I don't think XYZ guy, great human being, great person, meant a lot to this program in the time, but this isn't quite fit with the other pieces here. I'd love to have kind of a voice of kind of contention, if you will, not just to have
yeah,
it, but like someone who's been there and seen a lot of championship level programs happen.
yeah,
David Cutcliffe was in Tennessee under the former Peyton Manning era, and they
yeah.
won a natty.
And like Jeff Scott's not the exact guy you're describing, but I would
Sure.
love for him to come back, even if it's just for hey, to give us a year or two, just to come in and like have him be the co-offensive coordinator, where he's not the actual play caller, but he helps in like what he did with Elliott, where he's like helping in scheme and game planning, help revive some of the recruiting that's kind of fallen off for reasons again could be related to NIL. Maybe it's like reasons related to like Grisham not being a good recruiter because like wide receiver recruiting has like a lot of gripes on wide receiver coaching. I don't put much stock in it, but I do put some stock in like recruiting kind of falling behind a little bit at the receiver position.
Talent wise, you mean,
Talent wise,
right?
yes,
Like
yeah,
influx of talent. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and like, look, everyone wants to be like, oh, Antonio Williams and Adam Randall sure seem good guys, and it's like, those are in-state dudes. I would hope we could snag those guys regardless of star rating. That we need to put a fence up around the state. So let's go back into Florida and grab some receivers.
yeah. Give me a T Higgins or Sammy Watkins, and I'll be like, okay. And not every class, just like every other year. Like, give me a T Higgins or
Yeah,
Sammy Watkins.
yeah.
Yeah,
He'd be the expedient pick for me to find a spot on this staff for him. And who knows what he wants to do? He might want to take a year off, be a dad, reevaluate his football, really what he wants to do long term. I think like we know he could slot into Clemson. Like we know he would make an impact right away. Short learning curve for him. There's any number of roles on the team that I think he can make an impact in, whether it's really being involved day to day in the offense or maybe being more focused on recruiting and just like, the admin of the team. So yeah, +1 to Jeff Scott.
yeah. But yeah, probably can tie a bow on it. But you mentioned
Yeah.
some really good candidates, and it doesn't have to be. It could be, like you said, an older coach. It's kind of like just to give like a different
I
voice, and like
mean,
you said, to kind of
Cody, yeah.
dot some eyes.
What about Mac Brown?
He was on the short list, but he just removed himself
he
after
just
Drew Sweeney.
I don't know that 2-point conversion was worth pissing him off, but no,
Right.
totally. I mean, I was dead serious about Mac Brown coming in and being like close to the program, a Dabo mentor. ongoing would be cool.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I know you're the head coach at North Carolina, but that's kind of a shitty job. Would you want to
Have
be
you?
like a
Yeah.
administrator here at Clemson?
Right. I don't know who they play in the bowl game, but right off into the sunset after that, like you don't want to deal with these kids with their TikTok. Come on.
Right. Come on. You don't even know come on. You don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of guys out there that he could hire and he could handpick them. And one thing we forget when we think about hiring from outside, you don't have to take risks anymore at Clemson when it comes to hiring because you have a lot to sell.
Yeah.
Chad Morris was a risk at the time, and Brent Venables wasn't the coach of the year that he was at the time. You don't have those risks. You can hire anyone you want. You have the money. Like why not?
Yeah. It'd be nice to see some type of swing. And look, Cody, let's hit this in a future episode. But I think on the defensive side, we'll do this when we recap this season. I'd really like to see a further infusion of coaching talent on that side of the ball too, and experienced talent.
Agreed. I think when you're measuring year over year, Brandon Streeter got a lot of credit or a lot of flack for not for actually improving year over year. Whereas it'll be interesting to see what happens with the defense next year. And I think that's how you should be kind of judged: is are we seeing progress?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
And I think you almost can't almost like we can't pass a judgment on Wes Goodwin yet because he truly hasn't been in this kind of role yet. Streeter, very influential in the offense. A lot of his assistants, very influential in the offense, even under Tony Elliott. So,
I mean, you could say the same for Wes Goodwin. Like he was the right hand man of Venables, as they said.
yeah,
So the story
yeah, that's
goes.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's see what progress looks like. I mean, I think the bowl game is going to be telling for both coordinators. So I'm really looking forward to it. One thing I'll say, I do wish that we were playing a bowl game opponent that would have had a little bit more of a strong defense as their profile, just to see like how legit this new look offense under Cade looks. Tennessee is better than North Carolina's D, so we can at least get a little bit of a glimpse.
I say save the defensive test for next year. We need like a program, put it on a poster. Clemson's back, baby. Next year we're coming for the playoff. Like
All
we
right,
need that kind
I'll
of
agree with that.
program building
Yeah,
win right
yeah, that's
now.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, as good as Saturday felt and as shitty as last year and a half felt, I'm down. I'm down with that for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Cody, let's wrap it up there, man. Good discussion as always. Great to break down the game, a little bit of the bowl matchup, situation with the team, with roster management. Signing day is coming up. That'll happen. That'll end before the bowl game. So we'll get Quacking Tiger on, probably get a little bit of a recap, look ahead at the class, look ahead at the bowl game. So stay tuned for that, everybody. Thanks as always for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody. We love doing this. We hope you guys have fun listening. We're gonna come back with a bunch of shows here coming up. You know where to find us: Twitter, Facebook, your favorite podcasting app. And Cody, you've been doing a great job this year, cutting up some video of our recordings, putting that out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Clemson podcast. Thanks for doing that. Everybody go subscribe, like, follow us, watch our videos. I recommend watching it like 1.25x. We sound a lot better when it's sped up. That's true of the audio too.
I don't know what our optimal speed is. I would be like, yeah, leave a comment on how fast you need to speed us up for it to be bearable.
Yeah,
Enjoyable.
definitely. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's wrap it there, Cody. Thanks again, everyone. As always, go Tigers.